Okay, folks, good evening. Andy Pedraza here with Special Effects Academy on the start of the week session for September 16th of 2018. So with that said, we'll get the show on the road. Our usual agenda for today: prior week, the currency strength meter, fundamental announcements, analysis of the major pairs, any setups in progress, and our parting words. What you're right now, we out.
You're cutting out for me.
Okay, can everybody else hear me okay?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, I haven't done anything different, haven't even moved.
Huh.
But anyway, let me know if it happens again. Okay, so we had the Euro Pound trade close against us with a 100 pip loss on the long-term account. And we still have a Pound JPY trade open at this time, which is carrying a loss of about 100 pips at this time. It's actually better than it was on Friday. So it has been coming back to us since late Friday into today. On the short-term account, we had pretty much a terrible week, no hiding that. We had a 12% downtick on the trades. The market itself has been pretty choppy. It's been going up and down with no clear pattern, which has made it, well, difficult to trade is putting it mildly. So that's just been the nature of everything. We did have two trades open at the end of Friday's market, Aussie CAD short and USD JPY short. We had every intention of closing these out, but the market actually closed early on the broker we're using, so we didn't get that chance. I did that about 15 minutes prior to market close, and it did not take the orders. So they did remain open. Right now, one of them is at profit, one of them is at a small loss. Neither one of them are big profit or big losses, so basically break even on those. At this point, there is no purpose to closing them, so I'll let them continue to run until further notice. As you can see, we had only one winning trade for the week. That was a USD Swiss off one of their fundamentals. Everything else did go against us. They were at some level of profit for a while, then they turned around and did hit our stop loss. None of them were huge losses in and of themselves, just combined. It was, like I said, not a pretty week, about 300 pips down. And as I said, negative 12% for the account as a whole. We'll be covering some of that in the coming slides, but we'll take a look at what the market actually did. Notes and opportunities for improvement. The market was swinging in both directions, as I mentioned throughout the week. We did follow our plan on our system, taking the trades that were presented. And of course, as I say, we are going to have weeks like this one. Unfortunately, it's what happens when you trade for real. So there are an unavoidable aspect of trading. And, well, I'm not going to cover the trades remaining open. I covered that in the last slide. So Aussie CAD short, USD JPY short on the short-term account. Moving on to the relative strength meter for the week and the week prior. So this week that just ended saw a slightly lower volatility factor, 1.78%. We see that a lot of the pairs actually did the opposite of what they've done the week before. Again, pretty much a symptom of a sideways trending market. The Aussie had a pretty good week, coming off a bad week the prior one. The CAD did actually quite well. CAD was the clear winner for the week. It was not so the week before that. The Swiss had a good week. The Euro was middle of the pack. The Pound was also middle of the pack. The JPY probably had its worst week in quite a while, losing ground against pretty much everybody out there. Not only that, but losing ground quite heavily. So it was one of the pairs that moved the most. The New Zealand dollar, middle of the pack. And the dollar was also not having a good week. The only one it did gain some ground against was the JPY. Every other pair went against every other currency. I'm sorry, went against the dollar. Silver had its worst showing in quite a while. Also lost a lot of ground, and that is very atypical for this kind of market. In times of uncertainty, usually the metals do well. This time, silver just got clobbered, and gold didn't fare any good either. So that is the RSM, the relative strength meter for the past couple of weeks. And as you can see, just to stress it again, it's just been going in both directions, not just intra-week, but also week after week. So we'll take that under advisement for this opening.
Can I ask you a
and
question?
the rest of the week to come. Of course, Diane.
Oh, I wanted, is there any reason why JPY did so badly?
There probably is. I don't pretend to know every reason out there. So there was nothing obvious in the news cycle or in any of the fundamentals that could explain it. Just the normal waviness of the market when it's doing nothing else. So we definitely not trying right now. On the flip side of that, and we're going to cover that in a slide to come, this is election week in Japan. They're going to have a pretty significant election to pick their prime minister Thursday into Friday, I think. So that is obviously going to put the yen in the spotlight. So that's going to be one of the currencies to be keeping a close eye on as the week progresses. But no, just to answer your question, no straight answer. Obviously, something spooked the market on the yen, but it's not really clear what it was.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. Is the sound quality any better, by the way, or has the
It
problem
is.
gone away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, good. Okay, moving on then to our fundamental announcements for the week. We have the CPI coming out of Europe tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. We have the Reserve Bank of Australia's meeting minutes coming out at 9:30 p.m. All of these times are Eastern Daylight Time. Bank of Japan monetary policy and interest rate decision coming out Tuesday night, which is a key thing on top of the fact that we have elections on Thursday for the Japanese prime minister position. You will not see that one on the calendar. This only covers fundamental announcements, while an election is pretty much the king of fundamentals. It's not considered part of the regular calendar, which is why it's important that everybody trading keeps an eye on the news cycle and understands what's going on beyond these fundamental announcements. Wednesday starts off with the Bank of Japan press conference, which is midnight. Technically Wednesday, I still think of it as Tuesday night, but that comes right after the interest rate decision, a couple of hours after. We're going to have the CPI coming out of Great Britain at 4:30 a.m. on Wednesday, and the GDP coming out of New Zealand in the evening. Thursday, of course, we have the Japanese election, which are not here in the calendar, and we have that Swiss interest rate decision. That one was scheduled for last week. Apparently, it did not actually come out. They issued a statement, but didn't actually give a decision on the interest rate. So that got pushed out to this week, happening Thursday at 3:30 a.m. That one will be live traded, as will be the Bank of Japan interest rate decision. I forgot to mention that. So those two will be live traded. And last but not least, Friday, we have retail sales and CPI coming out of Canada at 8:30 in the morning. So the only two I plan to trade are the interest rate decisions out of Japan and Switzerland. And of course, I'll be paying close attention to the prime minister election out of Japan Thursday into Friday. I'm not sure how quickly they deliver results, but it is a key election and will pretty much decide the leadership of Japan for the coming years. And we also have a change of guard. The emperor is stepping down and abdicating. That's not a huge thing globally speaking, but in Japan it's pretty much a big thing. I think that's scheduled for 2020. So the prime minister that gets selected this week is going to be the one on hand, assuming he lives that long, God bless him and all that, is going to be the one at hand for the change of emperor in Japan as well. Those things have huge, huge weight to the Japanese psyche, even if nobody else really cares. But trust me, that is a big thing in Japan, and it could very well make the yen do something. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Folks, if you're not talking, please mute your phones. I'm getting a bit of background noise. Okay, moving on to the euro dollar, well, to the charts for the dailies. We can see these are, of course, all daily candles. We can see that it is in a sideways range coming out of that nice little uptick. It's still at resistance or very near resistance from the Kumo, the Ichimoku cloud. I guess philosophically, I still think that this one is going to take another trip to test the bottom, but it has been in no hurry, and there's no way of telling how long this sideways action will last before there is a breakout in either direction. So we are going to be a little bit more cautious this week jumping into trades. They're going to have a, not changing the system per se, but taking a look at a couple of other factors so we don't get lulled into or pulled into those sideways trades this week as happened the prior one. So euro dollar, as I said, at resistance, moving sideways. It did have that breakout a couple of months back and then quickly returned to the range. But in essence, it has been sideways since back in late May when it entered the current range. And that's that. Pound dollar has done a bit of a retrace based on positive Brexit news in the last 2-3 weeks. So we can see how it bounced off that bottom. It is now also at resistance. You guys know my my outlook. I'm happier trading the pound down than trading it up, though I will take a signal in either direction. But I do think that, like the euro dollar, this one is going to at some point test that low. Doesn't mean it'll go deeper, but that it will test that low, even if it will eventually climb back up to the heights. If it does test that low, that is a nice chunk of pips. If it goes in the other direction, even bigger chunk of pips. So not sure what to tell you other than we're keeping an eye on it, and we are open to trading it in either direction. But my personal bias is I think we're going to have a test of the low. USDJPY, of course, you've heard what I said about the interest rate decision and the elections. So this is going to be a key week. We've had yen weakness, as pointed out earlier today. So this last week was pretty terrible for the yen. It went all the way to, well, to where it is right now. We are short on it. We caught pretty much the high last week, and we shorted it expecting something of a Friday retrace. That has yet to happen. The trade is still open. I'll probably tighten the stop a little bit further depending on what it's doing. But if it is in the sideways pattern, then that may play in our favor, as it will probably do another test of the area of the cloud before it picks a direction. So that may indeed work out in our favor as we kick off the week. Other than that, I'm probably going to be very, very cautious about trading the JPY until at least that interest rate decision comes out. Next up is our friend the USD CAD, another one that is sideways, even though it has given a bit more of a swing area as it does its sideways pattern. It came off a high back in June. Its lowest point was back in August, and even though that wide difference, that is about 400 to 500 pips difference between the two extremes, it has not broken out in either direction since May. So keeping an eye on that one. Again, my bias on this one is bullish. I expect a trip to the bottom or at least to the middle ground at some point. If it does go up, it doesn't have as much room, but I do feel that the CAD is overdue for a bit of a recovery. And it does tend to be range bound, so that is also part of the basis for what I'm saying. USD Swiss, we've been trading this one down for the last couple of weeks. Actually, our majorly profitable trades have been with the USD Swiss. It did do a retrace on us a couple of weeks back where we took profit out. It has since gone on to test that low 3 times and is currently in the process of doing that right now. Another one that has a lot of room to go towards the bottom, and I am looking for a really, really nice entry to trade it down. But for now, as long as it's staying right there at that level of support, I'll be keeping an eye on it, but not in any rush to enter it. However, when it comes to long-term trades, this one is one of my preferred. I just need it to give me the proper entry. Aussie dollar, pair I've just been loving to hate lately, but it has been bearish for quite a while, beginning of the year. It has now returned to do a test of that trend line and is now bouncing off of it. Not much more I can say other than that for now. Keeping an eye on that one, but bear with me. Okay, keeping an eye on that one, but it's a very, very tricky pair to trade. Spends a lot of time sideways, even though you see the downward direction. We can see that it does do a lot of sideways action, which will lull you, then a breakout, fake out, whatever you want to call it. But the general direction is down. So I am indeed looking for opportunities to trade it down, but it has to be at the right point in time. Kiwi dollar, pretty much the same thing I said about the Aussie dollar applies to the Kiwi dollar. It is heading down, has a little bit more consistency, less of a sideways action, barring a few periods like this one. It does do deep retraces. Now that it has that trend line, though, it seems to be sticking very closely to it. Another one that I will likely look for, very, very quick in and out entries to trade it down for anywhere between 30 to 50 pips at a time as the week advances. Indeed, we might be in these pairs multiple times over the week if they are performing in a directional mode, even with the sideways market. So Aussie dollar, Kiwi dollar, I don't normally focus a lot on them, but this week might be the exception. Aussie Canadian, we've got an open trade on this one. It is currently at profit. This was one of the ones that stayed open on Friday due to early market closing at our broker. As I said, it is at profit. I do believe in the direction, and this was one of the 2 trades that I had been toying with the idea of actually leaving it open over the weekend anyway. The one I wanted to close was the USD-JPY. So again, while it continues moving in our direction, I'll allow it to remain open. I'm going to be focusing on those 2 trades and making sure that the stop loss is adjusted to minimize any potential there of risk. Let our profits run. Euro Swiss, the Swiss also on this pair recovering. So we have Swiss strength both against the dollar, against the euro. It was actually a nice little move it did on Friday towards the bottom. If it does continue, we have a low that has yet to be tested. And that would probably be the direction for the week if that's the way it moves. Too early in the week to tell, but another one where my bias is definitely bearish on this pair. Euro pound, we covered the euro pound already. It is hanging out at that prior low, much matching the cloud, the Ichimoku cloud acting as support right there. So I'll be looking for, as I've said before, I'll be looking for opportunities to trade this one up towards the prior high. I'm sure it will give us that opportunity at some point, but for now, we've had at least a week and probably going on 2 of it just staying down there at that range. Euro JPY still continues to follow the downward channel that it's established quite a while back. So that has started, I'm going to say all the way from back in November is when we had the start of that channel. It has broken out a few times, but always seems to return. Right now, it's in one of those breakouts and will likely, and I said this last week, I'm looking for a nice opportunity to trade it back in. And indeed, I am, in general, bearish on the JPY pairs, on the pairs themselves, bullish on the JPY, bearish on the pairs. I would expect Japanese strength to push these towards the bottom. Again, tricky week, interest rate decision and Japanese elections, but we'll be keeping a close eye on this pair as well. Euro Canadian. Canadian strength is my bias, so I think that we will see a test of the bottom. But again, I don't trade my bias. I wait for the actual entries to play out. But if you force me to have an opinion, I think there is a nice opportunity or possibility of this one dropping all the way to that prior low, or at least to the low right before it, around the 149.25 right here. Either one, it's a nice chunk of pips. So another one I'm keeping a close eye on. Pound JPY, and this is the one I'm really hungry for. So you guys know my opinion, pound weakness, and in general Japanese strength, or at least less weakness than with the others. This one has gone totally in the opposite direction thanks to the positive news out of Brexit for the Brits. I do not think that will last. However, it has crossed the cloud, so technically we are in a bullish breakout. But all that being said, I would not be surprised if it does return to the channel, maybe even to test the prior low. So this is one that I'm really keeping a close eye on for that opportunity to trade downward whenever that happens. Aussie JPY, sideways pair, not doing much. It broke out of its channel very briefly, and it's now sort of looking to go back into it. Well, all I can say is it's a JPY pair, so caution this week. But also between all the JPY pairs, this one is probably the least attractive, in that its sideways pattern has been going on for way too long, and this breakout doesn't seem to have a whole lot of strength behind it. So I'm not going to be looking at it too much. Just keep an eye on it as I do all the other pairs, but not in any high hopes. Euro New Zealand, it is at a level of resistance all the way at the top of the chart and overextended. This is the one European pair that is so overextended that I really don't see that it has a lot of option to continue going up. So another one that I'll be looking for short entries as soon as we see a good one, especially on the long term, because a drop all the way to the bottom is in excess of 1,000 pips if it goes to the bottom of the previous channel. And that wasn't too long ago. This was just back in May, it was at that level. So it's done all that, a lot of sideways action. We traded it up for a while on this first swing. We stopped when the sideways action started. We never got into the next swing, but I don't think it has a lot more room to move up. So at this point, really keeping an eye on it for it to tell me that it's dropping, either based on technicals or based on news coming out of Europe or New Zealand. I really don't care which. But I think that it does not have any upside, just downside at this point. And I think this is our last one, the pound Canadian. So as with all the other pound pairs, I do bias. I think that pound weakness is going to come back into play. This one doesn't have as much room to move, about 300 pips. This being a daily chart, that's not a whole lot. 300 pips to do a test of the bottom. It has already tested it twice. It is following the downward trend line and is also at resistance on the Ichimoku cloud. Doesn't seem to have had strength to even reach the trend line, so it's doing a inner trend line right now. But again, with the news bolstering the pound, you have to wait for that news cycle to flip. and go against the Brits, and then this one will give us a nice opportunity for a bit of a pickup. That is the last pair. Any comments or questions on any of the charts before I move on? Okay, and then here is what I see as what I'm going to be paying the most attention to in this coming week. The USD pairs, of course, the back and forth and sideways across all the major currencies especially have been affecting the dollar. So we haven't had a lot of breakouts or any trending, just a lot of sideways action. So I'll keep an eye on that, see if it's going to continue for the week. As I said, I will take steps to adjust the trading if I see we're in for more sideways action, but also keeping an eye open for any breakouts because that's where the money is. The euro pairs, as I said, they are overextended into euro strength on several of the currency pairs, and determining whether a continuation is at hand, which like in the case of the euro New Zealand, I seriously doubt it, or a reversal will be the trick. It's going to be a matter of timing. Don't jump into it too early, and of course, don't jump into it too late. The pound pairs, the pound has had a great couple of weeks, but can it last? The answer is no, it can't, but it can certainly last for longer than this week. So another one we have to do proper timing once we get into a directional trade. Swiss pairs, the Swiss is back into strength against the dollar, and it's not looking too shabby against the other currencies, especially the euro. So a key currency that I'll be looking at all these Swiss pairs for opportunities this coming week. And last but not least, the JPY, as I mentioned, key election happening this week in Japan, as well as their interest rate decision. And that is going to be it as far as the trading itself. Again, the theme here, we had choppy waters. As always, the hardest market to trade is going to be a sideways market. Gives you a lot less opportunities. Going to require greater care, and tighter rules. So that's what we're going to be looking at this week, making sure that we don't give it more opportunity to go negative on us, thanks to the intra-week sideways action. So we've noted that, we've adapted, which is what we need to do as traders, adapt to the market. Market isn't going to adapt to us. And that's it for me for the opening session for the Forex market in the Forex trading room. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Hello, Andy.
Hey, Miguel. Happy weekend.
How's it going? Oh,
Pretty good, man.
okay. I think I missed the first few minutes of the session when you opened this. What are your fundamental views on the Aussie again? You are looking bearish on the Aussie?
The Aussie itself as a currency has been in weakness since January. I see nothing that would change that. At best, we're looking at it getting to its bottom and just hanging out there. But for it to start going up against the other currencies, you need something to happen to make it go up. I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So bearish, because that's what it's been since January, and at best neutral. Definitely not bullish.
Got it. Noted.
Now, that's me. What's your opinion?
Well, I mean, most of the pairs that I've been looking at that involves the Aussie has been overextended already, and it's due for either retracement or a pullback. Well, a retracement or a strip to the opposite direction where it's going on right now, especially on the Euro Aussie. I know you don't look at that as much, but I've been looking at it, and based on what the movement is, it's way overextended. So
I don't disagree. And quite a few of them are overextended. Euro New Zealand is the same thing. And I'm going to bet that the Euro Aussie looks exactly like the Euro New Zealand.
Yeah,
because they're twins. But as I said, there has to be, they just don't go up and down for no reason at all. There has to be something that makes it do that. So you're looking for either Euro weakness or Aussie strength. I
Right.
don't see Aussie strength in the cards, my friend.
Right. That's what I see too. So I'm gonna have to look at this in the more upwards direction as well.
Yeah, but you could see euro weakness.
Yeah. What
That's a
kind?
lot more likely than Aussie strength.
What would you look at fundamentally when it comes to your weakness?
Well, obviously, you look at the interest rate decisions and all the other announcements, but more you're looking at the political balance in Europe, and you're looking at Brexit as well. There's a couple of key elections coming up in Europe. You know that Europe has been swinging right pretty heavily, or I hope you know that. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of nationalist parties that are actually starting to get enough votes to be serious contenders. That's not good for the stability of Europe. And the market does not like instability. So if you get any Italian or German or even Swedish, even though they're not, part of the euro currency union, they are part of the eurozone. If you get these nationalist parties coming into power or having to share power, which is more likely, you'll start seeing a little bit of weakness come into the euro. If you see a major bank like Deutsche Bank failing, and trust me, that one's teetering right now, you'll also get the euro being hit. So it's a lot of factors, and you don't care which one, you just care that one of them happens.
Right. The so-called eurozone. So I guess the closest one that impacted the euro as well was that the Turkish lira, wasn't it?
The Turkish lira, but again, Turkey isn't part of the eurozone, so you'd
Oh,
think, who cares, right? The problem
right.
was that a lot of banks were invested in Turkey and heavily invested in the Turkish lira, and they took a bloodbath.
Yeah, that's what dipped the Euro USD all the way down to the 113s.
Yes. So something like that happening, which of course you can't predict, it'll happen when
Right.
it happens, is what's going to weaken the euro right now. There's nothing else on the calendar. And again, the banks in Europe are humongous. They're too big to fail that you think we have over here. Over there, it's too big to even contemplate that they could fail. So you
Right.
know that the government has to bail them out, or if they don't, it's going to be a massive disaster. Deutsche Bank is my candidate for a fall right now. It's one of the weakest, largest, biggest, strongest, and at the same time, weakest banks in the Eurozone. They've been getting billions of dollars in penalties from the U.S. for mismanagement and other shady stuff. They got hit by the lira. They're firing people left and right, doing headcount reduction and cutting costs. I posted in my Facebook a week or so back. They just canceled fruit baskets for their executives. I mean, when you're at
Huh.
the point when a fruit basket is significant to your bottom line, then you got a problem.
Wow. It's that significant of a impact for Deutsche Bank right
Yeah.
now.
It's not that it's significant, it's that they have nothing else to do. I mean, they've already cut everything else. Well, what's next? Toilet paper in the bathrooms? I don't know.
Fruit baskets.
Yeah. So when you're scraping the bottom of the barrel that hard, you know that just a tiny little push, that's all it's going to take. I'm already
Right.
shorting Deutsche Bank like there's no tomorrow.
Wow. All right. Yeah, that's just my concern about all this. Oh well, at least for one significant pair, anyway.
Yeah. So be careful with the Aussie is all I can say, because I don't see anything that would tip it into strength anytime soon.
All right.
Doesn't mean it'll drop more, but it's probably just going to hang out.
All right.
Thank you, Miguel. Anybody
No.
else?
Yeah, if that not pronouncing it properly, douchebag.
Deutsche Bank, not douchebag, Rick.
Douchebag.
Deutsche Bank.
Not douchebag. No, but if that thing goes, that's going to affect the euro as well, isn't it?
Yes, it will, simply because it is one of their major. It's the same as if TD failed in Canada. It's like second to their Federal Reserve.
Right.
So yeah, it'll make that. It's not going to make the euro, drop to 50 cents or anything like that. But it will give it, 5 to 10% haircut. very easily.
The
I don't even care about that. You're not going to catch it. That's like trying to catch a falling knife.
yeah,
If Deutsche Bank fails, by the time you get to your console, the move is done.
yeah, it's over. Yeah, it's over.
Yeah. You might as well trade the retrace because it will come back. The euro will come back. So you might as well trade it up instead of down. What I'm doing is, as I think we've talked about a couple of times, I shorted Deutsche Bank, the stock itself. So I just need to wait.
Well, if you're shorting the stock itself, you ought to have good entry points because the news generally is out well in advance, so the stock should be weak.
Yeah, but I'm already shorting it. The same way you can't time the Forex, you can time the stocks. If I wait for it to happen, then I miss it.
No, I just think you ought to have good entry points.
I short it based on what I think is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, well, I lost a couple of $1,000. But if it does happen, I made a couple of 100,000. That to me is great risk management.
There you go. Yeah.
So that and literally that my risk is $2,000, and the upside is almost unlimited. And if it doesn't crash now, it'll crash eventually. I'll just keep on doing it, $2,000 at a time.
There you go.
But yeah, you can never catch a black swan on the Forex. That's just not going to happen. You may be caught by one, but you're not going to catch it. All righty. Anybody else? All right. Then this video will be up for your review very shortly, including the douchebag comment. Apologies to anybody who hears that, but that's how it is. Thank you, folks. Have a great week, and I will talk to you tomorrow.